That's Floyd. Floyd!
Welcome to Thunderdome, bitch.
Welcome to Thunderdome, bitch. It's the Penni podcast, fresh off the Orioles' dramatic exit from the post. Well, not really dramatic exit from the postseason. I'm wearing my Orioles shirt. Too soon. But welcome to the Penni pod. I'm your host, Sean Fitzgerald. With me, as always, my partner in crime, Jerry LeBlanc. We have our first ever poll in the chat, I think. I created this because we're starting at exactly 9 p.m. for the first time in forever. So I had the time to create a poll in the chat. Which 1 in 3 team do you think is the best? But only let me choose 4 options. So sorry, Jerry. I had to pick of the 5 1 in 3 teams. I had to pick the 4 that were most likely to receive votes. So your team was left off the queue. But
that makes total sense. I know what I'm about right now.
So vote in the poll. We'll see how it goes. I can't even see any answers besides from Scotty right now. But we're gonna recap week 4. We're gonna talk about the trade that went down between Zach and McMillan. We're gonna talk about which actually had the highest value players, like the highest drafted players of any trade this season so far. We'll talk about the offer report, and we'll talk about the week 5 predictions. So, without further ado, we always start with the commissioners matchup on this podcast. We're not going to deviate from that now. I don't know how I keep winning. I keep predicting me to lose, and I don't. So I'm definitely losing this week, right?
A little too soon to tell. I haven't looked too closely at that. No, I mean, you just had everybody do what you needed them to do. I mean,
yeah.
And don't get me wrong, you obviously expect the Steelers defense to give you more, but Lamar Jackson's looking like not a terrible number 1 overall pick.
I got so much heat for that.
I mean, honestly, I'm a little surprised you put up 140 while starting Jacoby Myers.
Yeah, but he did.
Yeah.
He did what he has been doing, which is getting 8-ish points, give or take a couple, and that's all I needed because I didn't trust Waddle, and thankfully he got even less. He got 5.5, but I didn't have, aside from Freiermuth on the bench, who's now off my team, I didn't really have any depth, and this is by virtue of Devontae Smith got injured. Yeah. I had a lot of injured players already on my bench that I stashed.
Yeah, so I think you're kind of in a situation where at some point your team is going to regress because Devontae Smith being hurt, Jalen Waddle doesn't have a quarterback anymore. Hollywood Brown obviously hasn't played yet. Hopefully you're hoping he comes back, right? I mean,
yeah, no, Hollywood Brown.
I feel like you don't have a ton of depth, so you can very easily have a week where especially now that we're getting into buys, let's see how that works out. If any injuries pop up for you, but no, so far your team has been exceeding expectations, I would say.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I hard agree. And the last thing I'll say about my team is just, I drafted Jonathan Brooks with the expectation that now that we're past week 4, Scott says after this bye week for the Eagles, Devontae Smith will be back. So I'll get him back not this week, but the following week. But I managed this week without him. Jonathan Brooks should be back starting relatively soon.
So I just don't know what to think out of Brooks. He's a rookie, right? He hasn't played at all in the NFL. I think he tore his ACL in college last year. I just don't know what to expect from him, and it's still the Panthers. I don't have a ton of faith in any Panthers player. But
Allow me to retort, because here's the beautiful point. I had a math teacher once. Shout out to Mr. Martin if you're watching this podcast. My math teacher 4 years, excellent math teacher, one of the best Goretti had, but the best math teacher Goretti had to offer, one of the best teachers at Goretti. And he always said the same thing when he talked about certain things when you'd solve a problem or anything like that. He'd say, "That's the beauty of it." Let me tell you the beauty of my Jonathan Brooks pick.
What's that?
It's if he hits, it's a home run. Even if he doesn't do a damn thing all season, he was what facilitated my pick of Chuba Hubbard as an absolute handcuff who put up 20 points this week. And someone's going to run the ball in Carolina. With Andy Dalton, they can run the ball. And also, Part of the thing with
Better than
Carolina
when
is
Young.
they spent a ton of money in the offseason on their offensive line. And now, all of a sudden, they are effectively running the ball. I love it. I love everything about the biggest question mark I have right now is Jonathan Taylor, because of the high ankle sprain.
Yeah, he's questionable coming into this next week. So
I did get Trey Sermon though on the waiver wire. We'll talk about that later. Let's talk about Jason Smith for a little bit. I want to say like I predicted him to win, and I still think his team is like playoff competitor. It was. I mean, like, he had a down week for his running backs, but his running backs aren't strong. What really did him in, I think, was Kyler, right? Like, sub 10, or a 10-point performance from Kyler.
Yeah, this is the problem with Jason's team. Like, I picked him to be in the top 3. What's his team name right now? Good on paper. It's like he's literally like the exact opposite of what your situation is where it's like your team is just exceeding expectations. His team just like can't seem to live up to what they're supposed to be doing.
Absolutely. I mean, like, and to be fair, his first and second round picks did perform exceptionally well this week, as they should. CD and Sun God, both with like 38 points between themselves. But like, and to be fair, Jaden Daniels, again, just a fantastic trade to get him.
I mean, he's like the only guy. I mean, now he's QB1. I don't know if that's going to last forever. And I'm still so scared of him just breaking.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean,
that's how I feel about Lamar,
great trade at this point, getting him as like the number 1. But yeah, he does have some injury issues. Joe Mixon didn't play this week. I believe Devin Singletary underperforming, didn't have a good week. And I'm pretty sure he's questionable. It's like his receivers are great, but his running backs, and I was never a big believer in Ramondre, and week 1 he like came out and was like, okay, maybe that was a mistake, but it kind of seems like it's on a downward trajectory for him. Yeah, like Jason's team is just like you expect such high things, and they're just not quite putting up the numbers you were hoping for.
I'm surprised he hasn't tried to move Amari Cooper yet, just because he has. Like, he's going to have to get rid of a little bit of wide receiver. I mean, I understand you want to have wide receivers during bye weeks, but the
problem is Amari Cooper is even like a sell low at this. I mean,
yeah, you're.
I mean, he's had one big week where he put up 24.
Yeah,
and he's wide receiver 40, I think, right now.
Yeah.
41.
Yeah, no, and I mean, Scott said the same thing you did. Just to be clear in the chat, that Mixon getting hurt was brutal for Jason.
Yeah.
But. And Window is suggesting that Gibson's going to get some carries, and that's going to.
Gibson's been getting work. He's had I think he's been getting like 30 to 35% of the touches in that backfield.
Yeah.
Which, when you expected Ramondre to be the guy, like, I don't know. I think also Gibson's like a better pass catcher, so yeah. But so I know we're not doing the trimester grades, but if I was going to throw out any grade at this point, the one grade that I would say for you would be you're like the only person I think right now that's getting an A.
Hard not to when you go undefeated for the first.
You're undefeated. You're undefeated. You're first in points scored, and I think one of the biggest things on top of that is you also haven't had the benefit of a super easy schedule. Like you're not like the low. I mean, I guess you're like 6th or 7th in points against, but like it's not like you're just getting wins because you have the easiest schedule so far.
Yeah, no, I mean and to be clear, guys, Jared brings up a great point about trimester grades. This season we're converting. We're not going to do trimester. I know in the past, and since the beginning of this podcast, we did trimester grades. With it being a 14-game season, regular season, it kind of makes more sense to do them after week 7 and just do like one grading episode at the midway point. So we're going to do grading in episode 8. Stay tuned for that. Your midseason grades. Brad joining the chat, I can see. But Jerry might chime in with 1 or 2 grades. Spoiler alert. So anyway, we talked a lot about this matchup. We'll move on to the next one. This was Alex and Scott, and Alex squeaking out his first win of the year, and his season was, I don't want to say dead, but like there's a huge difference between an 0-4 start and a 1-3 start.
Yeah. It is really, I mean, a really close game too, only winning by like 2.5 points. And it's one of these things where like I just feel bad for Alex in this situation because the players that like his team has obviously not performed well, but the players like that he has that should be performing well, it's like they're not hurt. It's just like Brees Hall apparently just isn't is just in a committee, and who knew that he was going to be in a committee coming into this year?
Right.
I don't know. It's just like a lot of mediocre across his roster, and I just don't know where he goes.
I don't feel bad for Alex because he didn't deserve a win this week and got one. And I mean,
32 out of Justin Fields. It's got to feel good.
I'm sure it was even sweeter because his quarterback, the Steelers quarterback, saved his ass.
I mean, he probably would feel a little bit better if they could have won that matchup. But
yeah.
Speaking of that, results of another slap bet. Alex loses.
Oh,
imagine that.
Alex gotta stop making slap bets. I don't think he's in the chat, but Alex, welcome to Jason who just joined the chat. Alex runs notoriously bad at slap bets.
And this one wasn't even a bad one. Like the Steelers were 2.5 point favorites. Like they were supposed to win. Like, but what did I mention in the last couple of weeks? Outright favorites just are not fucking winning at the rate that they normally do.
Yeah.
Like another 5.5 point favorite fucking falls in the New York Jets being 7.5, 8 point favorites at home to the fucking Broncos. I think Bo Nick's stat line was like 12 of 25 for 80 yards or something. Like
I think it was
and
less.
They win.
I think it was less for passing yards. I think he had less than that.
That's what I'm saying. It's just wild to me how many like massive favorites just can't go out and like not cover the spread, like get a win.
You know why, don't you? Because it was in the last leg of your parlay.
Yeah, it's the last leg of my parlay. Of course it was.
Oh man. So Alex, though, he does, like I said, he did squeak out a much needed win. I agree with your points about mediocrity. He's got some decent wide receivers that, again, he could try to maybe parlay into something.
So,
but again,
I also just feel weird about his wide receivers because, like, Stephon Diggs currently sets at wide receiver 10, and you got to feel good about that. But he's also looking like the third option there.
Yeah.
When Tank Dell is healthy, it's like Nico Collins and Tank Dell have like been the main target share.
But that's one of those things where you're like, again, you got to sell high when you can, if you can get it, if you can sell high, because, like, quite frankly, what you said about Brees, I mean, he's still RB16, but
yeah, I just don't know what the I mean,
but you're not
this last week in particular, man, like it was like a 50-50 split.
Yeah. It's definitely worrisome.
Yeah, even like DJ Moore, wide receiver 34. You thought he was going to be like the stud guy in Chicago. Like,
speaking of worrisome, and Scotty had the foresight not to start Big Tony, and I would never have imagined, oh yeah, he won't start Anthony Richardson. He'll start Deshaun Watson and Geno Smith. But he did it. Ended up being the right call. Still didn't get him the win. But now, Richardson questionable with I think it was the hip
at some point
injury.
he had to start Deshaun Watson. Once you trade for him, you kind of got to do something, right?
I mean, Jason drafted him. I don't think he ever started him. No, I just Scotty's team really what did him in, and this is again why Alex is extremely lucky this week. Rashee Rice, Ice Bagel, because he got injured. Because Patrick Mahomes blew out his knee. And
I've heard that he might still come back. That might not be a season-ending injury. We'll see how that turns out for him. But
okay.
But I've heard. I'm just saying.
I've heard the Orioles are going to win the World Series this year.
I'm just hoping, man.
Like
one run in 2 games. Like
I don't want to talk about it.
It's no bad.
Even keep bringing it up.
I mean, the pitching was great. I mean, if you knew going into this series that the Orioles were going to give up 3 runs in these 2 games,
I would sign up twice.
Yeah,
and then I realized, wait a minute, our bats have been garbage the second half of the year.
Oh my god, yeah.
But
sorry,
anyway,
we're gonna keep referencing back to baseball. I mean, we're in the middle of playoff baseball. We can talk about it a little bit.
All I'll say though is Scotty, but for that injury, Scotty wins this week. But I also will say, I have been saying for weeks now, since episode 1 this season, I have said Scotty is going to be bottom 3. And right now in the chat, that poll that I put up, he has 83% of the votes. He is the winner right now of the best 1-3 team. The chat thinks he's the best, but I have been saying from the jump, this is a first to worst situation. And every week, the fates just continue to push my narrative.
So I think one thing that you do have to hold on. I think one thing that you have to remember is, yes, I mean, I think it's a pretty obvious situation. I'm pretty sure, correct me if I'm wrong, he's third in points scored. He's 1-3. What do you want him to do?
First to worst.
Like, I just don't know what you want me to say. Like, he's third in points scored. He's second in points against. Like, it's kind of he's just had some bad luck in the matchups. I think his team is really good. Like, and here's the thing. I would say, like, if I just want to take integrity, I'd just sit here and say, like, I Jason in my top 3. He's gotten unlucky too to be 1-3. I think he's the best team right now. But, like, I think at this point in the season so far, Scott's team has been better.
Scott has some extremely good players. Kyren, Jahmyr Gibbs, Jamar Chase are all guys who it's like, I want to start them every week. They're locks. Jaden Reed also left him on the bench, but Brad, oh no. Amazing slap bet idea. Scotty versus Sean's record for the remaining 10 weeks. Neither deserve their current record.
This is...
Scotty, let me know if you're willing to do it in the chat. I might consider that one. But no, I definitely think, and Scotty looks like he is starting Jaden Reed right now, but I don't think he is a bottom 5 team. I'll be clear. I'm like I said, I'm manifesting the future that I want to live.
Here's the thing. Anybody but me being last is all that really matters.
Scotty's not willing to do it, by the way.
Of course Scott's not willing to do it. You got to give him like 6-1 odds. Look at his arms.
No, but I do think Scotty will find himself in the playoffs come season's end, but realistically, but I
currently sitting in playoff position. That's all I'm saying.
As the wild card.
As the wild card, but still.
Let's move on to matchup number 3. McMillan versus Jerry. Now, I want to go back to the chat for a moment. McMillan asked me to point out, oh yeah, this is way back. Talk about how Mark Andrews wasn't a bad drop.
I don't know what did Mark Andrews do this week. I don't I'm assuming nothing. Like,
I don't think he did anything. I think who picked him up? It was Alex that picked him up, right?
This week he 1 target, no catches.
Maybe we're all wrong.
I actually never commented on the Mark Andrews situation. As somebody who has Isaiah Likely, and I guess maybe not in this league. Maybe it was my other league. I have Isaiah Likely. I'd rather him get more of the touches. I don't know. Did I have Isaiah Likely in this league? I can't remember. But yeah, I guess it's not a bad drop. Apparently, Lamar doesn't want to throw to tight ends this year.
I mean, I just want to say, like, the fact that McMillan does get his first win this week, and to be fair, you didn't put up much of a fight, but
here's the thing. I picked him to win. You look at my team. What am I supposed to do? It's like Carson Steele got all the carries last week, and this week he got 3 touches, and he also fumbled on like his second carry of the game. And the guy that's sitting on my bench, not that it would have made the difference, but Kareem Hunt gets all of the touches this week, and I'm hoping that he's going to get him again this week, and I actually have the starting running back coming forward, like moving forward. But like, I just don't know what I can do.
At least Carson Steele didn't have he went negative, so he didn't have an ice bagel. But you did get Kyle Pitts then, so you know.
This is just like coaching malpractice by the Atlanta Falcons organization. Like, when I legitimately was like literally in the chat on Sunday, I'm like, I'm not watching the Falcons game. I don't know what's happening. Is Bijan hurt? Because is an 8-7 split carry, and Bijan has not had a second half carry. I don't understand what's happening. And Kyle Pitts, do the Falcons know that Kyle Pitts is a tight end? Because they keep lining him up at receiver, causing him to be guarded by much faster corners. You want to know where Kyle Pitts can actually take advantage? Being guarded by linebackers, people who don't run a 4.40. What are the Falcons doing? Tyler Algier, not better than Bijan. I understand he got a couple. Tyler Algier had pretty good games. Second half, 7 carries, 50-something yards. Awesome. What are the Falcons doing?
Window points out the Falcons won, bruh.
I don't care. A bro clock is right twice a day, right? They got to win. Congratulations. Who did they beat? The Saints. I mean, I understand the Saints started off really hot. I don't think the Saints are a playoff team. I could be wrong about that when it's all said and done, but I wasn't a big believer in the Saints going into the season. I just don't and honestly, Window's making my point even further. Yes, they won. They were up that entire game, and Bijan Robinson wasn't getting carries. It's this is why I legitimately was asking, is he hurt? I don't see anything about an injury, but he's just not getting carries in the second half while they're leading the entire time. I don't understand what the Falcons are doing. They just because they got a win, I'm not excusing the terrible decisions that they continue to make with their personnel.
I will say though, what I was saying from the jump was I was impressed that even though obviously your team is just DOA right now,
I can't do anything. Yeah,
McMillan put up 126.
He had a good week.
We talk about Mark Andrews was his 5th round pick, that is off his team.
That is true.
And the fact that he's still. And Kirk Cousins did him no favors, mind you. One of his quarterbacks dropping 8 points, but he has a Malik Neighbors who looks like a true stud. Yeah. He did make the trade for Marvin Harrison before this week, which we'll get to later.
Yep. Currently sitting as a top 10 wide receiver. Yeah.
Yep. And CJ Stroud does CJ Stroud things. DeAndre Swift had a monster game. He's one of those teams that. I think he has a major uphill battle to get to the playoffs, but I'm not ready to say he's dead.
No, absolutely not. I think 2 weeks ago, his team looked a whole lot worse. I think the Marvin Harrison trade really did help him. Malik Neighbors has exploded. I mean, it, honestly, it looks like Daniel Jones drops back and says, fuck it, Malik's down there somewhere. And he's just going to throw it to him no matter what.
Yeah.
I mean, his target shares the last 3 weeks, I think he has something like 45 targets in the last 3 weeks. It's absurd.
It's bananas. I'll look it up right
it's
now.
It's wild. It is absolutely wild. All he does is look for Malik Neighbors, which big thing that can make a difference for McMillan this week. If Malik, because I think he exited that game with a concussion.
He does have 45 targets in the last 3 weeks. That's averaging 15 targets
a game. It's wild.
That's nuts.
It's unsustainable. Honestly, kind of not surprised that he got a concussion at the end of that game. That's just a lot of hits that your body's taking. Normally, I mean, yeah.
That's actually the big question: is that concussion? He's out of practice today.
Yeah,
he's in the early stages.
If Malik sits, that can hurt him this week. But yeah. 45 targets, 30 catches in the last 3 weeks.
Yeah,
it's not hard to put up RB or wide receiver 1 numbers when you're getting that much of the target share.
Well, he doesn't really have much in the tank beyond that. I mean, Juwan Jennings' value obviously plummets the more San Francisco gets back to their normal offense. I guess he could do Michael Pittman, but Brandon Cooks also is
Juwan
out.
Jennings' numbers is skewed because of the 40-point game.
Right, but I think his options. I mean, I don't think Demarcus Robinson or Tyler Johnson are realistic options. I think they're just depth because he had Puka.
Yeah.
So really, it's just he's down to, if he doesn't start Neighbors, it's down to Pittman, Cooks, or Jennings. Pittman is probably the favorite to start, I would think. Jennings is a dark horse. Brandon Cooks is recovering from a knee infection, so he's got some interesting decisions to make.
Yeah, and also something that could help him, maybe not this week, but in the next few weeks. Apparently, Nick Chubb returned to practice this week.
Oh wow!
So he might be a few weeks out, but if he comes back and is anything like old Nick Chubb.
That's a big if, though, with how
it is a big
that
if,
injury
obviously.
was.
But I don't think anyone expected him to play this year, and the fact that he's already back to practice in week 4.
I will also say, and I'm a little bit jaded now being a Miami fan, but I was really, really impressed with Jalen Phillips, how quickly he recovered from his torn Achilles last season. I was like, wow. Like, he is demolishing timetables for when I thought he'd be back on the field. Like, he is playing in the early season. I never thought I'd see that. And then this week, he blew out something in his knee and is done for the year. And it's one of the things that they talk about is like, oh, yeah, a player will, like, basically compensate for that injury by putting more, weight and torque on another part of the leg or another part of the body. It's like, yeah, so be careful. Yeah, and that's what I'm saying, Window. Phillips, I just said Phillips is done for the year, so not a great time to be a Miami fan. So, big win, though, for McMillan to get his first one.
Keeps the season alive.
Yep. When we talked about your team, so moving on to matchup number 4.
Oh, really quick. The only other grade that I was looking to give out this week was for my team, and I'm not giving myself an F. Okay.
Why?
I'm giving myself an I for incomplete. My team isn't actually competing right now. But my grading system, it's not even like I'm fucking up the curve for everybody right now. Okay.
Incomplete.
Like, it's an incomplete. Talk to me in week 8 when half of my roster comes back and is healthy. Maybe. So, who knows? Maybe Christian McCaffrey doesn't even play. I don't know.
So if you take a test and you don't fill out half the test, you get an incomplete?
Did you ever watch Boy Meets World back in the 90s?
I should have, but no.
So it's a thing, and Corey Matthews has a situation where, like, they're like planning out their life, and he says that he's going to be the center fielder for the Philadelphia Phillies, and he actually doesn't really have a plan for how he's going to accomplish any of his goals. And Mr. Feeney gives him an I for an incomplete. He's like, it's worse than an F. You're giving me an incomplete on my life, and that's how I feel right now.
All right. Matchup number 4. Brad hands the box his first loss. This was a surprisingly low-scoring matchup for two teams with 6 wins between them now. But, like, Zach was 3-0, Brad was 2-1.
So, yeah. I think, if I'm remembering correctly, I did look at it earlier in the standings. I'm pretty sure that Brad and Zach are like the bottom 2 in points against. And it's amazing that they play each other and they're both ending up with the bottom 2. Like, they're not playing me, so they actually don't get the bottom score, but as close as you can.
But they're both mid-table in terms of points scored.
They are, but see, this is like the thing, though. Like, you can be mid-table. Mid-table normally doesn't end up as like you're in 3rd place.
Right.
Like,
True.
no, like getting like, we all know that it's better to be lucky than good in fantasy football. If you're getting the best matchup every single week, you're gonna win. Like, you can finish 9th. Like, this is why I'm a big proponent of like doing the playing against the average of the week or whatever. Like, you can just get the 8th, 9th, 10th matchup every single week, finish 6th in points scored, and hey, look, you're undefeated. Like,
well, and let's talk about the trade a little bit. I'm not gonna show the graphic yet, but we had the trade and between Zach and McMillan. The players Zach got Jalen Hurts, and for essentially, like, he swapped out Justin Herbert for Jalen Hurts. He also gave up Marvin Harrison Jr. for Puka, who is on the IR. So, like, Zach basically, I get the logic, because he's basically saying I'm at a 3-0 start. Like, I want what Puka's going to be when he comes back from injury. And I also want Jalen Hurts over Justin Herbert. I want a short, because his other quarterbacks are Matt Stafford and Daniel Jones. He's like, I want to have a stud quarterback. I get the move.
But
it's risky.
What could be the upgrade from Jalen Hurts to
right?
to Jalen Hurts from who was it?
Herbert.
From Herbert. Yeah, I get that. I just still am not a massive believer in Puka Nacua. Like, he did great last year. Cooper Kupp was out the vast majority of last season, and when he was there, yes, Brad, I did win last week in 9 scores. It's literally what I'm talking about. You're literally making my point. Thanks for that. Appreciate you being on my side for that.
Why is Scotty saying you want to suck the fun out of fantasy?
Because I'm trying to reduce short-term variance.
Oh.
Fuck me, right? I'm the asshole, apparently. hey, let's just reduce the short-term variance by a little bit, guys. And it's like, nope, that would ruin all the fun.
Ruin my day.
In fact, I think it would actually make it more fun because then you care about everybody's matchup for the week, not just the one that you're currently playing in. But I digress. Puka Nacua last year ended up top whatever. He was like a top 10 wide receiver, and that's great. But when Cooper Kupp came back, the target share was literally like dead even between the two of them. I'm not on your side. I don't understand the argument that you're trying to make then, Brad. I know I like you're making my point for me, but you're making my point for me. I don't know what you want me to say. I don't understand me having a history degree has anything to do with this. But anyway, Puka Nacua, Cooper Kupp, pretty even split when they were both on the field last year. And first week this year, I understand Puka Nacua got hurt, but like Cooper Kupp, a lot of targets when he was on the field. I don't know which one's going to come back first. Obviously they didn't put Cooper Kupp on the IR, so I'm really hoping that he's going to, be back soon. But I don't know how he's going to be. I just don't know how much value Puka Nacua has if Cooper Kupp is also on the field, because his target share is going to just be dramatically decrease.
Well, it's definitely a downgrade at wide receiver from Marvin Harrison Jr. to
Massive at this point.
Yeah, it's. I think Zach is hoping best case, like the worst case scenario, it's offset by the Jalen Hurts upgrade from Justin Herbert, and I think he's hoping that if Puka can kind of regain some of that form he had last season, even he had some monster games. And I understand a lot of it was due to Kupp's injury, but if he can regain some of that form, Zach wins the trade. I mean, if you're talking about, we'll get to the trade a little bit later, but if you're talking about where they were drafted, Zach does have the higher drafted players overall. It's complicated. Yeah. We'll get there.
Yeah.
But
also just to really chime back into the chat here, Brad saying, didn't you win last week with that? Actually, no, I think I was like 5th or 6th in points scored that last week. We talked about it on the pod last time about how I was in 9th and then I got a late touchdown that actually pushed me up to like 6th. But yeah.
But I will say for Brad's team, again, huge to get a win when you score 100.
Yeah, feels great. I did it last week. It was awesome.
And really, this was a matchup he should have lost. Just looking at his quarterbacks, right? Like 12 points out of Josh Allen and Gardner Minshew. He left Jordan Love on his bench because of the injury.
The injury concern, but honestly,
and then he puts up 28.
He's got to be. Obviously, he benched Zamir White for a reason, but you got to be worried about his running back situation right now. I mean, Zamir White he's just not getting it done. I mean, I thought that Zamir White was going to be awesome, and he just isn't doing enough.
I'm less concerned.
He's averaging between 3 and 5 points a game. But Achane, I'm concerned if you don't have a quarterback. I mean, he looked great with Tua in the game. The last 2 weeks, you got to be worried.
Tua will be back. Tua will be back in whatever it is, like 2 weeks. I think it's 2 weeks and then a bye, and then the Miami Dolphins will play 2 more weeks without Tua. Then there will be a bye. Tua will be back after that, I suspect. And if that is the case, Devon Achane could recover a lot of value. Now, I'm not going to make a slap bet on this. I'm not going to make a bet on a player's long-term health and livelihood. I'm making a prognostication based on what I'm hearing from rumors and things like that. But I'm not making a slap bet on whether Tua comes back that week or not. What I will say is this. Even regardless of the Tua situation, Raheem Mostert is in his IR. Raheem Mostert is likely to come back at some point very soon. Could be back as early as this week. Miami is going to figure. It's not like they've forgotten how to play football. They look like they have the last couple weeks. They're going to figure out how to run the ball at some point this season. I'm less concerned, especially because Brad also has Tony Pollard, who looks like a stud in Tennessee, and Tyjae Spears in case there's any injury issues. He also has Rico Dowdle, who had a very good game last week, and looks like he might be getting fed more in Dallas. So, you only need to start 2 guys a week. You can start wide receivers elsewhere. I'm not hitting the panic button. And he also has Bucky Irving, who's starting to get fed more than Rachaad White. Like,
I was not a big believer in Rashad White. I don't know what to think about Bucky Irving, but yeah, he's getting touches. I mean,
but that's saying like so
can't turn it down.
So what I'm saying with Dowdle and with Bucky Irving, right? Like, and with the Dolphins, kind of like he's got the Dolphins committee, he's got the Tennessee committee, then he's got Dowdle and Bucky Irving. You got to start two of those guys. You can get by with that and be fine. Scotty, I don't disagree that if Tua doesn't come fully back, any Dolphins pick is wasted. I don't necessarily disagree. But again, we'll see where we're at in 3 weeks. Like if they come back, everything there's no reason why they can't go back to what they were doing. And again, teams have bad stretches. Like, it just happens where teams play very poorly. It is absolutely possible that this ship could be righted sooner rather than later. It's just a matter of recapturing some form and confidence. And I think you're just also just biased. But anyway. Is there anything we didn't talk about in this matchup?
I mean, another pretty subpar week from Josh Allen. I mean, it's boom or bust, it seems like. 31 week, less than 10 the next, then 30 again, less than 10. I mean, that was a bad showing against Baltimore. I was real surprised.
Still QB4.
Still QB4, but I mean, that boom bust thing, if you miss 1 week in the playoffs, your season's over, and that's scary.
Yep, it is very absolutely true. But it helps when you're playing against Daniel Jones and Jalen Hurts.
This is true. But I mean, I'm looking at his late matchups in the season. Got the Jets, got New England.
Let me ask you this. What is Zach going to do at wide receiver? Especially now that he doesn't have Marvin Harrison Jr. Like,
I mean, back to what I was just talking about. Like, Tua being out, it's tanked Tyreek's value. Drake London, I mean, he's wide receiver 22. He's been okay. But again, I don't have any faith in Atlanta setting him up for success. Zay Flowers is supposed to be the number one wide receiver. Who the fuck is Lamar Jackson throwing the ball to? He's not throwing it to Mark Andrews. He's not throwing it to Zay Flowers. Like, who the fuck is he throwing to?
What did I say? I said, and I said this during the draft, and I'll say it again for those who didn't hear me in the back. I don't want any Baltimore Ravens wide receiver in fantasy.
But who is he throwing to? Someone's got to be catching the ball.
He runs the ball. He runs the ball. He throws to himself. He throws to Derrick Henry. Throws to Isaiah Likely. He doesn't. Like, there is no Baltimore Ravens wide receiver that is sustainable in fantasy football. Period. Don't do it. Bad things happen to good people when you draft Baltimore Ravens wide receivers. But these are the things that I got heat for in the draft, and it's like, oh wait, Sean does know what he's talking about. Another one, by the way, Alvin Kamara, Rashid Shaheed. I really wanted those guys. Shoot, Zach got them one pick before I was going to draft them. And everyone's like, oh, I don't want any part of the Saints.
We got the obligatory, hey, I talked about the two Saints guys.
Alvin Kamara's RB1. He's RB1, Jerry.
I get it. But you
Rashid
said it every week.
Is a wide receiver, too. Was drafted like the 14th round.
Why didn't you draft him in the 13th round? What do you want me to say?
I'm pissed.
Yeah, we get it. Those guys have worked out through 4 weeks. We get it.
Man. But Barkley and Kamara, by the way, just continue to carry Zach's team.
Well, yeah. I mean, Barkley's pretty good.
All right, last recap, and then let's get to the trade. Window beats James in the highest scoring matchup of the week.
Yeah.
I was not expecting this to be the highest scoring matchup of the week. I'll be honest.
I did not either. I feel like this is one of these situations that they both kind of just, despite Bijan not getting a carry in the second half, just everybody hit. I mean,
the 49ers
Sam
defense.
Darnold, 34 Derrick Henry, 23 Jordan Mason, even Debo, pretty pedestrian through his wide receivers. But when you're going to get 22 out of the 49ers defense.
Yeah, that's saved Window, because but for that he loses this matchup.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, you get 22 out. I mean, you get a 16-point difference on your. I mean, who expected the Jets to only get 6 though when you're playing against Denver? Like they only like it is mind-boggling to me actually how they gave up 10 points and only got 6 points total. Like it's kind of hard, especially when you're playing against Bo Nix, to finish with that low of a score actually in that scenario.
Window has to make a trade. He has to trade. I mean, I shouldn't say has to, because obviously Jordan Mason is a short-term asset. He should have sold high on him at some point, because every week that McCaffrey is closer to coming back is eating into Mason's value. But he has to. I would think he has to sell him at some point, because he has Kenneth Walker on his bench. Like, you could start Derrick Henry, Kenneth Walker, and Jordan Mason if you want, but then you have ETN on your bench. You got to trade a running back, bud. And that would prevent you from having to start Khalil Shakir week in, week out when Tank Dell is injured. You could Devontae Adams obviously is on his bench too. Window actually, like, the more I talk about Window's team, he's got a lot of assets. I would think he might want to also get a third quarterback besides, Sam Darnold and Patrick Mahomes. Like, I think he dropped Snoop.
I mean, at some point, I think Patrick Mahomes is gonna start playing better.
No, he solid floor player, but Patrick Mahomes is not. I would take. Where is he at right now? Let me see where Mahomes is in the rankings.
He's quarterback 16.
I mean, like, okay, this is not gonna be a hot take then. I'll say, like, I don't think Patrick Mahomes will be the top top scoring quarterback in any given week for the rest of the season. I don't think he'll ever have a week where he is the number one scoring quarterback. He just doesn't boom anymore the way he used to.
I mean, I think this right now is a weird situation. You lose Isaiah Pacheco. You don't have Hollywood Brown. Obviously, losing Rashee Rice this week doesn't help. I also think, like, the last 2 weeks has been a little bit better, but, like, he started off with Baltimore and Cincinnati, like, not bad teams. I don't know. I still have a lot of faith in Patrick Mahomes. Like, he threw 50 touchdown passes in a season. Like, he has that ability.
I'm not saying, again, it's not the player I'm talking about here, but from a fantasy perspective, like, he hasn't been that guy in a season and a half.
They just don't lose games, though. And I don't think that he is actually going to end the season with 16 plus interceptions. Like, the fact that he's actually averaging more than an interception per game, I don't think that's going to continue.
McMillan offered me a slap bet on the Mahomes thing.
That he'll never be a QB1 in a week?
That he'll never be the QB1 in a week. Let me be clear. I want to be clear about what this bet is, because I've made so many slap bets this season. I don't want to make. I
thought we were starting a tradition of every week on the pod we get a last.
Here's what I'll do. What week are we in now? We just had week 4.
Coming into week 5.
So there's 10 weeks left in the regular season. I will offer to bet he will not finish QB1 on any one of those individual weeks. He will not be the highest scoring quarterback in the NFL in fantasy football. I will make that bet. McMillan, let me know if you accept. Last, just talking about James's team again. It sucks. I mean, it's goes without saying. It sucks to lose when you put up 150.
Yeah, being second in points scored and losing is shit. Short-term variance, guys. Remember?
He's 4th in points scored overall in the league, though. Right now, sitting at 2-2. He's not in that kind of 1-3 log jam. The real question mark with regard to James is, like, I don't know. I don't. His lineup to me does not scream consistency. Like, I think Jason Smith, when we did the Brecky pod, was, like, talking about, like, oh yeah, James is, it just seems consistent. Like, hard disagree. Though it's really just name value to me. Like, I'm not saying, like, he doesn't have guys who are, like, wide receiver 2s and RB 2s, and Baker has massively overperformed, and Andy Dalton might be a serviceable fantasy quarterback, but, like, I just don't trust the guys on his roster.
Andy Dalton, Deontay Johnson stack is nice. Again, same kind of thing that I've talked about with Atlanta Falcons players. I don't trust any Atlanta Falcons player. Yeah, there's just a lot of players where, like, they've performed well this week. They have obviously upside potential, but, like, I don't have a ton of faith in a lot of the players that he has.
Yeah. So,
but none of them are hurt. So, I mean, what do I know?
Must be nice. Let's get to the trade. Zach and McMillan made a trade. The 4th overall pick that McMillan made, Jalen Hurts, and the 24th overall pick in Puka Nacua that he made, he sent to Zach for the 22nd overall pick in Marvin Harrison Jr. and the 79th overall pick in Justin Herbert. One of the things, the reason I'm doing these graphics, right, is because I like, obviously value, like, where you drafted someone is not their value. It's what they're doing.
Anymore. Yeah. I mean, once the draft is over, the draft is over.
But I think that's one thing about trades that we forget, and I'm starting this season, we haven't really done, is look back on where was this player drafted. And so I just think it's funny that McMillan, essentially, his 1st and 3rd round players he sent to Zach for Zach's 3rd and
8th
round players. And not to mention, by the way,
yeah,
so
it's not great, Bob.
McMillan's 1st, 3rd, and 5th rounders are no longer on his team. So if you want to maybe be 1, 3, 5, like the 1, 3, 5, 7, 8, he's also got the 1, 3, 5 not on his team, but he traded 2 of them away.
Yeah, I don't know. I get why Zach did it. He obviously wanted the upgraded quarterback, and being 3-0 helps. You can wait for Puka Nacua to come back. I just think, as much as I was like giving negative feedback to him for drafting Marvin Harrison so high because rookie wide receivers, it's just don't perform at the level that you think they're going to. I think he gave away too much here. Like, I don't know. Especially because I don't know exactly when Puka Nacua is coming back. Maybe he's back next week. He did get hurt in week 1, went on the IR. Maybe he's back in week 5. And he just immediately gets production at the same level as Marvin Harrison the rest of the season. He's going to look like a genius. I mean, he is a box, so like it's very realistic that can happen. But I'm not a believer in Puka Nacua. I think that the Eagles are also a poorly run team. I don't have a ton of faith in either of the 2 guys that Zach received in this trade. But like I said, they're going to be like the number 1 wide receiver and quarterback combo the rest of the way. So
I do want to point something out here. It's been a little time. McMillan, he offered this. He said slapback question mark, and Window pointed out in the chat Mahomes was the quarterback one time last year, and since that time it's been radio silence for McMillan. So I don't know if the slap bet. He's in the chat. He said exactly Eagles are dropping for Marvin Harrison. For Jalen Hurts. But McMillan, what's your take on that slap bet, buddy? It's been a little quiet. Anyway, so that was the trade. Going to the offer report. He agreed already. All right, so we have ourselves a gentleman's agreement. Huzzah. So we have our second podcast slap bet in as many weeks. The big spender this week was Scotty dropping 20% of his budget on and really
who?
Almost 40% of his remaining
Who?
budget. Scotty.
Yeah, no. Who is Josh Downs?
Indy's like 2nd or 3rd wide receiver.
I mean, okay, he got 9 targets this week, but damn, I mean,
that's a lot.
That's a lot of your budget for a guy that I think you probably could have got for free. Could have got for free.
40% of his remaining budget. There weren't many contested bids. Honestly, the most contested bid this week was the Denver Broncos defense had 3 bidders.
I've been saying all year how they are an elite defense and they have the best cornerback in football. So
PS2. And it always feels satisfying when you get a player where like you outbid someone by like $13, outbid another player by $17.
It makes me laugh too because I did it again where I like had a bid and then I was like, maybe I need to do a little bit more. And I actually originally had bet 30, went back and updated it to 40. It would have felt a whole lot better if I just kept it at 30.
But no, there were plenty of players like Josh Downs, Dontavian Wicks, Justice Hill, Trey Sermon, Drake May, all could have been gotten for $0, and yet we all spent money on them. The big one, the other big contested one aside from Josh Johnson wasn't contested, but the big purchase this week, Jason
Robinson
added Wan'Dale Robinson, who's been like the second target for Danny Dimes and has been fantasy relevant.
Yeah, I actually took a long time considering adding him last week off of free agency. Decided against it because I just have so many injuries. It's just hard to know, like, do I drop one of these players? I just don't know. So
I love that Scotty says, "Don't look at the offer report, please."
But yeah, and also like Dontavian Wicks. Who? Like don't get me wrong, I get it. He had a good week, but like you know he's not gonna get 40% of his catches turning into touchdowns every week, right?
I get it. Like, so here's the thing. I get like
also really quick, just window. I'm sarcastically like I know who they are. It's just I can't believe we're spending this much of our budget on them. That's I don't need you to explain to me who they are.
I love when you explain jokes. So nothing gets me harder than you explaining jokes. So no, like here's what I'll say. I've said this on the pod before. Like on the waiver wire, sometimes, especially with Fab, you got to throw in a little extra to make sure you get your guy right. Like if you really believe that these guys are the answers to your team's problems, no one's gonna care how much you spent if they end up hitting.
Yeah,
but I
don't remember anybody that was on the offers report last week. Like,
right.
We're gonna poke some fun at it while we look at it this week, but yeah.
I made my first. I don't think I spent any money until this week, and I finally spent a little change, not anything major, just like whatever it was, $30-some bucks, to get my handcuff for Jonathan Taylor. I was worried someone was gonna try to snipe him, like because again, it's not like a valuable handcuff by any stretch, but it's also if I don't have Jonathan Taylor, my team looks a lot different, and not in a good way.
Yeah.
So let's get to that. Predictions. I am scared. I'm projected to win probably because James either didn't set his lineup or because he has Bijan's questionables on his bench. He's also in kind of a bye week hell, I think. Philly and Detroit and the Chargers all on bye. I only have Devontae Smith, but that affects A.J. Brown, Jared Goff, David Montgomery, and Lam McConkey for him. So he's got a couple starters there who are going to be sitting. The line right now is plus 18 for me, at least on when I did as of the time I captured this. So I'm actually looking at it now. It's updated to plus 20.8 for me. So I'm a big favorite right now. Who you got?
Yeah. By the way, if you haven't set your lineup, guys. Try to get it done by Wednesday, please.
Do it now. I can maybe use the browser instead while we're waiting.
Yeah, that's like I saw a couple of different things as I was like doing a little bit of research for it. If you guys could set your lineups before tonight, that'd be dope. Helps us out when we're trying to make these predictions. So yeah, I have my notebook here about my picks for this week. Yeah, I don't know that James is for real with this lineup because like he has it here. Is he really starting Algier and benching Robinson?
I mean, Robinson's questionable.
And again, maybe he was hurt at the end of last week. I don't know, but no wait. As of 3:39 today, Robinson hamstring does not have an injury designation for Thursday's game against the Buccaneers.
Oh yeah, so that's all right. So that's that
100% he's fine.
That's 8.7.
So I'm assuming that's 8.7. That cuts it down to 12 points. Obviously, James is getting wrecked with the bye weeks this week. AJ Brown obviously was already out, but I mean, not having Jared Goff this week kind of hurts. I think Andy Dalton is a step down from that. David Montgomery being out, top 10 running back. I think you get the win this week. I think, again, Jonathan Taylor doesn't play. It might make things a little bit closer, but I do think you get the win this week.
Yeah, the big question mark for me is if Taylor plays or not. If Taylor plays, I'm picking me, and that should let you know how confident I am because I have been calling myself to lose for a long time now and regress. and I am that confident that with Taylor in, I would beat James handily. If Taylor's out, I see it as I'm a slight underdog. I'm still going to predict me. And I think I shouldn't predict me because this thing of predicting everyone else to win has really worked out well for me. But I'm going to call... I need to also catch up in predictions. So I'm going to predict myself and hope that I'm right. Moving on to matchup number... Oh, and one more thing I just want to say about mine. If Taylor does play, he's got a fantastic matchup. Like I do think I have some favorable matchups. George Kittle looks like an absolute stud. I think Arizona and San Francisco is likely to be a shootout. And Lamar Jackson, number 2 quarterback in fantasy in a divisional game. Like I do think I have some really, really good matchups. So yeah. We'll see how it all shakes out. But I do think overall I have the better team. So on to the title of this episode was Welcome to Thunderdome, because as I said in the video description, I don't know if anyone ever reads my video descriptions on YouTube, but
I don't.
You don't, but you did this week because I told you to. And the reason that's the theme of the episode is because right now, I don't know if anyone's looked at the standings. This would be a great time for me to pull up the browser for a second and take off the predictions. So right now in the standings, there are... Sorry, hold on. Stand by. There are... Oh my gosh, I hate this so much. I'm trying to get to show. There we go. Perfect. So right now in the standings, there are... Obviously, I'm 4-0. We have 3 teams at 3-1. We have James at 2-2. And then we have this 5-team log jam at 1-3. And what's amazing about the matchups this week, I don't know if you guys have looked at them, but of those 5 1-3 teams, 4 of them are playing each other. So I see these as Thunderdome matchups. 2 men enter, 1 man leaves. Like, if you want to leave with your playoff hopes intact, there is a world of difference between being 1 game out of the top 5 teams, or being right in the thick of it, depending on how James does, and being like 1-4 and needing to catch up that extra leg. Like, I understand it's still early in the season, but I'm just saying, with there being 4 of the 5 teams league are 3-1, and the bottom 5 are all 1-3, there's already 2 games between that margin. Like, you do not want to lose this week if you're in one of those 1-3 Thunderdome games. So, just wanted to explain the title of the episode and the Welcome to Thunderdome point. Let's get back to the predictions. Going back to our first battle of 1-3s, Scotty and Jerry. This is, again, I feel like we say this every week with your team, but your incomplete grade is kind of a problem.
Kind of just is what it is. Like I said, I know what I'm about. It extra hurts me this week because Jameson Williams on a bye. That sucks. Like, you benefit from the bye. I'm sorry, you benefit from the bye because he's not starting Jahmyr Gibbs. I don't know that I benefit. I mean,
yes, objectively,
I'm starting Xavier Legette because I don't have Jameson Williams this week. Like,
I get you don't have depth because your team is beaten to shit. I'm saying,
yeah, I mean, no Isaiah Pacheco still, no Cooper Kupp, no Christian McCaffrey. Like, it is what it is. I don't know that I'm super losing out because of the bye situation here, but doesn't matter. I'm picking Scotty to win for the 5th consecutive week. I have picked myself to lose because that's just the reality of what my team is right now. I do think that I have a couple of matchups here that could turn out okay, and if I'm able to like get a low scoring win like I did against Brad, sit at 2-3, maybe I can still make some type of run going into the second half of the year. But no, I'm going with Scotty.
I also am going with Scotty. I think, again, it's just a matter of depth. Like you said, like you identified you losing Jameson Williams, you have to start Xavier Legette, who has very limited fantasy value. Yeah. Well, I mean, your other options are Carson Steele, Mike Williams, or Braylon Allen, none of whom are ideal. But
I mean, if Breece Hall gets hurt, Braylon Allen's awesome.
To my point earlier, Jahmyr Gibbs is the best player on bye this week, and Scott's not starting him. But it's because Scott has Kyren, James Cook, and Jerome Ford. he has a higher floor to compensate for that.
Yeah.
I don't disagree that you have some very good matchups. The Broncos D has looked good. You're correct, and they get
and honestly, that could make a massive difference here. Like,
but hold
you
on,
see, if San Francisco goes out and gets McMillan, or I don't remember who it was, 25 points or whatever it was, I'm hoping I can keep it close.
One interesting question Window raised before I get back to the defense for a second. Window asked in the chat, not starting Rodgers, so you have Purdy and Trevor Lawrence and Rodgers on the bench.
I don't know yet. I honestly don't know. That could change. Aaron Rodgers he's just hit and miss. It's like but 1 week he does well. 1 week, getting 11 this week was frustrating, and there was multiple situations where he just missed guys. Trevor Lawrence had an okay week. Obviously, Jacksonville's hot garbage, but like, I don't know yet. I honestly don't. We'll see. We'll see how my decision making process goes for the next like 2-3 days. But
and that's a good question too in the chat. The Window is actually making some really good questions in the chat. If Big Tony is healthy, asking whether Scotty's going to start him over Groper, Cleveland, or Gino. But I want to point out the what
Groper Cleveland.
That's his name. You mentioned the defense. You're absolutely right. It could be a great matchup for the Broncos that ends up benefiting you. But you do need to remember he also has the Patriots defense, who get Miami this week, which looks like the worst, like the worst offense. Like, I don't know if anyone ever follows like the Big Cats rankings from Barstool on like it's every like a tier list of all the teams in the NFL. But I'm pretty sure the Dolphins are mega super ass in this week's power rankings. So Dolphins offense is as Jason Smith would say, dog water, and they happen to be playing Scotty's defense this week. So could also benefit him. I am going to go with Scotty. I think he is the clear favorite. Moving to the other Thunderdome matchup. This one, if you had asked me a week ago who wins this, I'm like, oh, it's Jason. Let's move on. I don't know anymore. It's Jason Smith versus Alex, and and honestly, one of the big reasons why I'm not sure is because Sun God is on bye. Like, it's the projection as of taping was 7 points in favor of Jason. But again, that's with Sun God on bye. Right now, it's probably different. I think
it's right around 7.1 right now. I'm looking at the active one. I mean, I am going with Jason. We've already expressed our concerns with Alex's team. I do think that Jason is also in store for some positive regression. Like, I think his team has underperformed. I think that, I don't know. Again, I'm not a big believer in Ramondre Stevenson. Don't think he has much of an option but to start him this week. But I do think that he has enough here to be able to beat Alex.
I think a lot also hinges on his running back injury status, right? Like, Joe Mixon, Devin Singletary are big question marks because he does not have much depth beyond those positions. Yes, Cam Akers is not getting touches in Houston anymore, although I guess if Joe Mixon's out, maybe he will. I guess that's thinking is he plugs in Cam Akers if Mixon can't go, maybe throws in Wan'Dale Robinson at the flex and moves Singletary. But again,
I will say that Cam Akers, I think, was serviceable last week, right? Or no, I don't remember. I thought 5.3, not that great actually. But I mean, he at least has somebody to put in place if Joe Mixon sits.
Sure, but like, there is a foreseeable scenario where Singletary and Mixon both like Singletary didn't practice today because of a groin injury. Mixon didn't practice today because of an ankle injury. Like, there is a possibility both could miss. And if that happens, you have Stevenson and, I guess, Cam Akers or Emmanuel Wilson as your two running backs because J.K. Dobbins is on bye.
Yeah, but obviously he's starting Devin Singletary and Joe Mixon right now. One of them is in the flex. He has wide receivers to plug in there. Like, he just did pick up Robinson. I'm assuming he'd plug him in there if both can't go. But I think it's like a pretty easy answer here. Like, Cam Akers, Is Cam Akers hurt? Why is he projected 0?
But I think because he's a backup.
He's just a backup. I mean, normally you don't see his projection of 0. Normally you see like 3 or something.
Yeah.
I do think that if for some reason both sits, he plugs in Cam Akers for Joe Mixon, he plugs in Robinson into the flex, and he doesn't lose a massive amount there.
I mean, Scotty picked Alex in the chat, and I actually agree. I am also going to pick Alex this week. I think I agree with you about Jason's team. I'm not saying Jason has a bad team. Let me be clear. I do think he's due for positive regression. I do think he's a playoff team. I also just really, I don't know, something about, and I would say I do like a couple of matchup things. I said Kyler, Arizona and 49ers, I think is going to be a shootout. I don't know. I just have this feeling there's not any logic to this. I just really do think that this is a week where Alex pulls out another win, gets some momentum, and Jason falls to 1-4. Sometimes fantasy.
You want to slap bet on that?
No, I will not. I will unequivocally not slap bet on it.
I feel pretty confident in Jason's team at this point, but
sometimes fantasy doesn't follow logic. This is like that McMillan pick a couple weeks back on the Brekkie pod where I said, "Oh yeah, McMillan's gonna win," and to be fair, he still lost, but it was a lot closer than I think anyone thought it would be.
Well, I was thinking same pod but different game. Mine and Brad. I feel like everybody was overtly confident that no matter what, Brad gets a win this week, and any given week your team just can miss. It happens
to the best of us. Now our last 1-3 team, McMillan has to go up against Zach, but he does benefit tremendously from Philadelphia's bye. He has the bye.
Detroit bye.
One of the things that's cool about this is being able to actually, one thing I don't think we've done on previous seasons and previous pods is looking at how buys affect matchups, looking at how in depth. And yeah, I mean, in doing these predictions, losing Saquon and Jalen Hurts for Zach, McMillan making the 200 IQ trade, giving him Jalen Hurts, knowing that it won't hurt McMillan this week.
So they already talked about that in the group or in the chat where Zach had made the counter that allowed it to be Jalen Hurts. So
okay, well then, so I guess it wasn't McMillan making the big.
Wasn't McMillan big braining this situation? So
I had so much faith in you, and you once again let me down.
I will say I do like McMillan's matchups this week. Obviously, losing out on both Saquon and Jalen Hurts hurts. No pun intended. I am going with McMillan this week. I think, I like his matchups. I think that his team's going to be able to go out and get a win.
I totally agree with you. I get it. And once again, like I said, I think Neighbors and Harrison are going to go off. I want to pick McMillan with every fiber of my being, but I have to go back to those 4 words. Zach is a box.
Zach is a box.
Do we really think that Zach is going to lose 2 weeks in a row? The horseshoe would not allow that. So, and the other thing I gotta say is he still has the number 1 running back in fantasy. Daniel Jones seemed to be finding a rhythm. Matt Stafford, absolutely. I don't have faith in the Rams offense, but Matt Stafford can have a good game.
I am curious how the Saints are going to look against the Chiefs.
Yeah.
I think that Alvin Kamara might be in for his worst week of the season so far, and that can make the difference on McMillan getting the win this week.
It's true. Very true. Our last prediction of the week is a battle of 3-1s. A battle of, I should say, no title 3-1s. 2 teams that have never won a title in this league before, and yet both have the opportunity to start the season 4-1.
Window is literally the most active person in the chat and has an empty spot on his damn roster right now. Set your lineups, guys.
He even said he hadn't set his lineup.
You're watching. Just go set it. Plug somebody into your flex. What are we doing right now? Actually, it's not even your flex. It's your tight end. Okay, Window does not have an active tight end on the roster. His only tight end right now is on a bye. So
someone else in the chat go through and just add and drop every tight end
right now.
Oh man, I'll go first on this one. Assuming that Window does what he should, and to be fair, we can't go too far on yelling at Window because did Brad set his?
He is not. And so right now Window is projected to win by 16.5. So let's say add another 5 or 6. So he's projected to win by like 20. Let's say 20 just for the purposes here. He's going to get a 10-point bump when he puts Jordan Love in over Gardner Minshew. He's going to get something in his flex, which at this point I would say is, I guess, Bucky Irving.
Yeah,
9
8
points. So, yeah. I mean, we're talking about a 20-point bump for what Brad has. It could be pretty close. I am curious who Window's going to pick up to put in this tight end spot. I am curious exactly how Brad lands on his flex. I'm going with Brad.
And we disagree yet again. I think Brad has. I mean, the reasons you mentioned, like you talked about the concerns with Brad's running backs, right? And now A-Chain has to go up against New England, who has a stout run D. Rico Dowdle has to go up against Pittsburgh, which has the second best run defense against running backs. There aren't a lot of good matchups for Brad. Justin Jefferson gets the Jets, who, say what you will about them, they have a very good pass defense. Oh, by the way, you know who else is a good pass defense? Second best pass defense against wide receivers? That would be Buffalo, and Nico Collins gets them. Like, Brad has a lot of great
Nico
matchups.
But Nico Collins is the number 1 wide receiver in fantasy right now.
I get it. I'm just saying matchups wise.
Same deal. I mean, the target share.
I get it. But to the point I'm making, favorable matchup for running backs is Arizona has a bad defense against running backs. That favors Jordan Mason. Cincinnati isn't particularly good against running backs. That favors Derrick Henry. I think there are some very good matchups for Window this week. I think this might actually be the closest matchup of the week. I'm going to give the nod to Window. But I like I said, of the teams I'd rather face, well, actually, again, until Brad's running backs get healthy, I'd rather face Brad right now than Window. But if Brad's running backs can stabilize, he does have the better team. And with that, we are done. So, thank you to our 14 views we've gotten so far. Everybody doing great work in the chat. We had 7 concurrent viewers at one time. We're just doing great every week, getting like 7 people to watch. Like, the league is watching. We appreciate you guys. I don't think I missed anything in the chat. Scotty still won that poll. So Scotty got all the votes but 1, and that 1 vote was for Jason Smith. So,
and was that you?
I don't think I voted, but it was 7. There's 7 votes in the chat. Scott got, I guess, 6 of them, I think. So,
yeah.
Anyway, thanks for watching, guys. Good luck in your Week 5 matchups, and I hope Patrick Mahomes does not go off at any point this season. Oh, and one last thing. We did get FIFA 25. So, I did create a club. Just saying they have a 5v5 mode this year. If anyone's bored, probably going to be playing it in the not too distant future. So, hit us up in the chat. We have a separate chat for FIFA, I think, that we can add you to if you want. But, yeah. And Window keeps saying McBride because McBride is on his IR. And
take him out and put him in your roster. What are we talking about?
The reason why he didn't is because he's waiting for Devontae Adams to be out so he can switch Adams into the IR and put McBride back on his roster. So I can understand that. All right. That's our show. We'll see you next week for episode 52, episode 6 of this season. Thanks, guys. See you.